Kia ora everyone, I'm TJ. Welcome back to my channel, New Zealand Mysteries. If you're new around here and you want to become part of a compassionate, caring community who want to raise awareness about cases and seek answers for victims and their families, you are in the right place, my friend. So please hit that subscribe button somewhere down there and join us. If you are a returning subscriber, many thanks. You know I appreciate each and every one of you. Quickly, just thank you for being patient with me while I take care of other things going on in my life. These videos are a lot of work and sometimes I can't do everything that I have to and the videos on top. So sometimes I need to take breaks now and then to look after myself, and the videos are what suffer. Right, this is the last video in the Scott Watson series. If you've not watched the first two, I suggest you go watch them first and then come back. Otherwise you might get a bit lost. There will be links for those in the description box below. I just genuinely don't mean any disrespect or grief to anyone involved in the cases I cover. All the information is freely available on the internet, and my hope is just to raise awareness of these cases. Right, let's get back into where we were when we left off. So in the last video, we were taking a look at the police file on the case, which journalist Ian Wishart is helping us to go through, taking a look at some facts, trying to distinguish facts from hearsay and rumour. Everyone in New Zealand does have an opinion about Scott Watson and his innocence or guilt. I just want there to be facts out there for people to base their opinions on, and have as much information as possible that I can get into 3 videos. Anyway, just remember, it's much more likely for people to remember things, memories and statements that they write shortly after cases have happened, events have happened. Their memory's much more likely to be accurate, rather than years and years later when they've heard different things and seen different things, and then their mind gets a bit jumbled and memories tend to fade and just come out scrambled. Basically, let's get back into it. So this is where we left off. Ian had put together this, and he was going through some confirmed facts between Scott Watson and versus Mystery Man. I won't go through them all again, but you can see, come from Christchurch, worked on fishing boats, had his own boat that he built, had sailed alone to Furno, had tried to convince others to use drugs, had short dark wavy hair down to his collar that did not fully cover his ears, and they were the same things that witnesses as well as Guy Wallace had told police. And so we know that there's many facts that Scott Watson has in common with Mystery Man. Let's move on. He goes on to say that issue 2 is proven. Watson is indeed Mystery Man. We'll take a look at some photos again, but quickly in this photo you can see that he has this, I don't know what it calls, it's like hair coming down the middle anyway. He can shave that off when his hair's shorter, and you can say that it's no fringe, but if it's longer it can come down his forehead and definitely look like a fringe. And if you look closely at the faces, these match the description of the Mystery Man with the slanty eyes or sleepy eyes, definitely. Now, Ian points out, digitally enhanced photos on the night reveal hair went below collar and that he was carrying a 24 to 48 hour shadow. So many people say that he was clean shaven on the night. That's not true. We looked at photos in the last episode, we looked closely, and he did indeed have what looked about a couple of days worth of stubble on his face. Multiple witnesses said that Mystery Man had what they consider 1 to 2 days growth on their face. Ian goes on to say it is dishonest for Watson supporters to claim that the witness descriptions don't match. They do, because we've seen them and we've talked about them. He says again, the probability of both Watson and the Mystery Man looking similar, both being around 5'8", both growing up in Christchurch, moving to Picton, working on fishing boats, working in boat building own boats, sailing alone to Furno, but yet being different people, is so infinitesimally small that even a DNA match between Watson and the Mystery Man would have a lower level of statistical certainty. Now, the next part, he goes into probabilities and numbers, and I'm not going to go through that. There's too many zeros. But you'll have a link to this description anyway, or in the description there'll be a link so you can come and look for yourself. But basically he says the conclusion is that Watson is the mystery man beyond all mathematical doubt, higher probabilities than DNA proof. Ian goes on about issue 3. Watson was the man on the water taxi. So there was some questions. We know, well, how did Scott Watson get back to Blade? We know Watson was in a fight at Furno Bar after 3 a.m. Okay, so he didn't leave the bar until after 3 a.m. Ian says Watson must have arrived at the jetty after 3:30 a.m. and got a water taxi back to Blade. Keith Hunter, who's another person doing a documentary, I think, I'm not actually sure who this guy is now, I'll have to find out, said, in my view, he returned to his yacht just once after 3:30 a.m. So Hunter and Ian agree on timings. So it's easy to solve which water taxi drivers were still operating between 3:30 a.m. and 4 a.m. when we know that Ben and Olivia were seen getting off. The answer, there's only 2 drivers. One of them must have carried Scott Watson because there was no way for him to get back to his boat after that time. So they're saying that he could well and probably was the mystery man on the boat with Ben and Olivia. As to for me, I know that Keith Hunter is the guy that made the documentary Murder on the Blade. I had a brain fart. Sorry guys, these things do actually happen, especially in videos. So let's go further into Watson being the man on the water taxi. The TV show Murder on the Blade built virtually an entire case around arguing that a driver named John Mullen had taken Watson home alone after 3:30 a.m. Hunter based this on a TV interview filmed with the elderly Mullen in 2003, 5 years after the events in question. However, Mullen's memory was false by then. It never happened. John Mullen, you see, had stopped working at 2:30 a.m. And here's the police statements from January 98. Remember, they're much more likely to be true and accurate straight after the event rather than 5 years or more later. So Don Anderson on the 5th of January says, I recall dropping John Mullen back to his boat, Southern Comfort, at about 2 a.m. to 2:30 a.m. Another witness, Rachel, on the 5th of January, said John was operating a taxi until about midnight. John may have done a couple more runs after midnight, but he finished work at around 2:30 a.m. John Mullen himself on the 6th of February said, I would estimate the time that I finished on the jetty at around 3 a.m. I wouldn't be able to be precise on that. I ended up going across the bay to the yacht with Don and the Yellow Naiad. I've been shown a photo of a male, which was Scott Watson, and do not recall seeing this person at all at Furno over the new year. We know he was there, but he doesn't remember him, so he obviously wasn't on his boat, so he has to be on Guy Wallace's boat, doesn't he? A couple of more points on this. If Mullen had gone home at least half an hour before Scott Watson even came down to the jetty, then he didn't take Watson back to Blade, no matter how many times Keith Hunter and Watson supporters try and tell you differently. They are utterly wrong. This is what Ian's saying. You've seen Mullen admit he had gone, corroborated by 2 others, and he told police at the time he'd never seen Scott Watson. Next point. So who was working between 3:30 a.m. and 4 a.m.? Only Don Anderson and Guy Wallace. And Anderson decided to take a coffee break then. The only driver who ferried anyone in that time was Guy Wallace, and he only made 1 trip in that time, and that was the fateful trip. The only taxi Watson could have caught was Wallace's, and Wallace found himself sitting beside a 5'8" tall man with short to medium dark wavy hair and tattoos on his arms, who invited Ben and Olivia onto his boat. Guy Wallace testified at trial that Scott Watson was both the mystery man in the bar and the man in his taxi, regardless of his later doubts. We know he was right because we can prove it by the process of elimination, which he's just done. So his conclusion is Watson was indeed the man on the water taxi, the mystery man who got off with Ben and Olivia. Moving on to the next issue. Was a mystery catch involved? And I tell you what, a lot of people's opinions have been based on whether there was or there was not a mystery catch involved. Let's take a look. Now that we know Scott Watson was on the water taxi, how do we explain 3 witnesses in the taxi who are all positive they boarded a big catch? Answer: the 3 witnesses never told police that. In fact, they all said it was a little boat. Blade, Scott Watson's boat is a little boat. Once again, we can blame, well, he blames, Murder on the Blade for false claims. He says, Keith Hunter writes, he got Guy Wallace and Hayden Morrissey to pose for interviews on the water in a Naiad inflatable alongside a high-sided ketch like the one they recalled. And this is a photo taken from that documentary, Murder on the Blade. And you can see Guy Wallace would strain to reach the deck of the ketch that they've got photoed. And here it's a high-sided ketch. Very, very hard to climb onto or climb over the handrail. Very high indeed. So the big ketch myth. But let's take a look what Guy Wallace told police at the time. Remember, closer to the event when memories are more, they're better. Let's just say better. Guy Wallace said, what is surprising about this particular one is that the middle of it's not that far out of the water, because when they stepped off from the Naiad, it wasn't very far, and I noticed I was hanging onto it from the Naiad, and most boats you've got to hold up, like he's demonstrating in the picture. If you're sitting in the Naiad, and I didn't, there was no strain at all. Does this ketch look like a boat that's, quote, not far out of water, and which he could hold with no strain at all, or had Wallace pulled it up alongside a much smaller, lower boat in the pitch dark? And what the 3 witnesses actually said in the police statements, and it's not what they say now, years after. Here's what Hayden really said. There was a question. From the floor of the Naiad, as it were, did any of them use the side of the Naiad as a stepping position? He says yes. Question. From that position, were they able to get on easily to the other boat, or was it a struggle? Answer. No, it was pretty easy. Question. Did all 3 of them get off similarly easily as far as you could see, or not? Yes, he says. So it doesn't sound like they had to reach really high to a huge ketch to climb up and over pistas mutes in the dark. This picture here, would this be considered, or a better example of an easy step in the dark from the side of the inflatable taxi, the Naiad, onto a boat? Maybe Blade. Here's what one of the witnesses, Miss Dyer, really said. Question. Did any of those 3 people have any difficulty getting out of the Naiad onto that other boat? She said, no, they didn't. Question. Can you remember whether they just stepped straight from the floor of the Naiad onto the boat, or did they step up onto the side of the Naiad and then onto the boat? She said, I know that they reached up to get on. I think there was a bit of a step, but nothing too big. Question. And how long was taken by the 3 to step off the Naiad onto the yacht that you had got to? Wallace says it was a very short time, like one after the other. Question. No difficulties encountered by any of them getting on? He says no, it didn't appear so. So them easily getting on to this boat, stepping from the Naiad, is it more likely to be a boat similarly like this one, Blade, or the huge one they've got here, which they have to actually climb over the rail? Yeah, I'll let you make that comparison for yourself. Also, Wallace told private investigators for the defence, what really stood out was how low in the middle, like the beams, the bow was quite high and the stern was quite high, but the middle seemed quite low, like banana shaped almost, and I think it would be a very, very wet boat to sail. There would be a lot of water coming on board. So which of these 2 pictures do you think he's more likely to be describing? Look closely. Does this seem like a banana-shaped boat? definitely looks like to me that I'd describe it as a banana shaped boat. Here is the sketch that Wallace done. Now, he put a question mark by ketch because he wasn't actually sure that it was a ketch or the size of it. He definitely drew something that looks like a banana shaped boat to me, just saying. A lot of contention has been about the two-masted ketch, and we know that Blade only had one. So of course we've just gone over the question mark, but on 3rd of January, Guy Wallace told police he was not certain but was pretty sure he'd seen a second mast, almost as if he was trying to convince himself. 2 days later he drew the picture and still had doubts. That's no surprise because no one else on the water taxi ever saw two masts. And remember, these boats that night, there was about 3 of them moored, like connected to each other. I can't remember, rafting up I think it's called. So it's a big possibility that he saw a second mast from the boat or ketch that was tied up to this particular boat. And that's why he was the only one and those witnesses that saw two masts. And look what happens when you match the sketch that Guy Wallace drew to Blade, which is Scott Watson's boat. I think it's very similar. He calls it uncanny, but it definitely doesn't, well, it just doesn't make me think that it was a big ketch now. I'm getting more sold on this idea coming from the facts from the police file. So Hayden Morrissey only saw one mast towards the front of the cabin. He simply assumed there was a second mast. He never actually saw one. That was evidence at the trial. Miss Dyer's evidence. She was asked, did you notice anything about whether the boat had any masts? She said no. So 2 out of 3 witnesses never saw two masts, which has been this big thing about the ketch and everything, and the third admitted he was never certain. Hayden Morrissey told police, the boat didn't have any portholes that I could see. Sarah Dyer said, or was asked, could you see any portholes at all? Not that I could see, she said. You didn't see any portholes? Yes. So 2 out of 3 witnesses never saw portholes either. If 2 of the only 3 witnesses definitely didn't see portholes, it's much more likely Guy Wallace, prone to memory failure, was just simply wrong. The entire ketch theory hangs on Guy Wallace, who did in fact lie to police about seeing a particular ketch and signed a police statement admitting that he had lied. He said, I would now like to tell the truth in relation to this. I have not seen this ketch. I made up the story. And that was given to police on the 7th of February 1998. Another clue. Guy could comfortably hold on to the top safety handrail while seated in the Naiad. Not in this picture on the right where he is having to stand and reach high to get, I don't even think he's reaching the rails. So, question put to Wallace, did you hold on to the boat? He says yes. Question, when you say a railing, do you mean a vertical element or a horizontal element? Answer, horizontal. Question, of the rail above the deck, the safety rail? He said that's correct. Question, you held on to some part of the safety rail to keep the stern and obviously of the Naiad? He said that's right. Sarah Dyer, at trial evidence, someone said, you remember Hayden grabbing hold of the other boat. Can you remember what part of the other boat he grabbed hold of? She said, no, I just remember him grabbing onto it. Asked, did he stand up to do that, or was he still sitting down, or was the halfway between the two, or what? She says, I'm pretty sure he was still sitting down. At the trial, Hayden Morrissey gave evidence. Hayden Morrissey admitted he was able to rest not just his hand or elbow, but his whole forearm on the deck of the mystery boat, a feature that would have been impossible on a high-sided ketch like the one on the right. Here's what Morrissey testified. Question, did you end up basically with your hand on the stanchion around it and your forearm resting on the deck of the ketch? Morrissey answers yes. So Ian says all the ketch sightings become irrelevant because It's stripped of his second's mast. It isn't a ketch. It's stripped of his high sides. It's not big. We've proven that, or it's been proven. And in the pitch dark, the banana boat that everyone effortlessly stepped onto was, in fact, Blade Scott Watson's boat. But what about the mystery ketch sightings? Because there was a few of them, and this is what a lot of people based their opinions on. That how could so many of people have seen a mystery ketch and it not be true or something? Let's have a look. Evan Walsh said it had shiny brass portholes. Her memory now is wrong. She told police it had blue portholes. She said it was long with hatch at the back. It had 2 masts. The most noticeable things were the portholes. They were dark blue and round, about 5 or 6 of them. The other thing was all the ropes were coming off the 2 masts. It reminded me of a sailing boat. She goes on to say the other thing was all the ropes were coming off the 2 masts. It reminded me of a sailing boat. I would say it was an unusual looking ketch. It was straight in the front with its main cabin at the back. I would call it a barge type look. In this photo is a barge called Alliance. This is what she saw. It was in the area at the exact same time, and this is the barge that she has described to a T. So this barge, Alliance, that was in the area at the exact time also had a blonde 17-year-old girl on board, and many of the witnesses described seeing this boat and thought that this was the mystery ketch, and that's what the rumour mill has kept going throughout the years. So Ian says that issue 4 is proven. There is no mystery ketch. There was a distinctive barge-like ketch with a cabin at the back that looked like a sailing ship. Everybody saw it that summer. There were other ketches that weren't involved either. The evidence from water taxi witnesses proved it was Blade that Ben and Olivia got onto. And I must admit, after going through all that, I am somewhat going along those lines too, that's for sure. Let's keep going. He goes on about issue 5 now, and why did Watson lie? And Scott Watson has been called out in quite a few. He lied about his time of departure. It was 5 a.m, not 7 a.m. He lied about what time he returned to his boat. It was 4 a.m, not 2 a.m. He lied about where he went. He said he went to Erie Bay by 10 a.m, but was seen by multiple witnesses after 10 a.m, sailing towards Picton with a man on his boat. He lied about painting his boat at Erie Bay on the 2nd of January. He painted it live at sea, en route to Picton, and was positively ID'd by Mr. Walsh in Picton at 2 p.m, painting boat from red to blue.
Police, I've just viewed a photo.
So there's a whole lot of information that I'm not going to go through, and that's in regarding to him painting the boat different colours and what witnesses saw. So if you want to go into that, you'll have to come and have a look yourself. Watson lies blew open a 36-hour hole in his known movements as police were investigating a double homicide. It is not credible that Watson would lie to cover up minor criminal dealings, especially when someone had already coughed up to the cannabis plantation, and instead served possibly his entire life in prison. If he had an explanation that didn't drop him deeper in the proverbial for murder, he would have used it. This is what Ian thinks. Another issue, it's about the clothes that he is wearing in the photos taken that night. This is his girlfriend who he lied to. She told the court, "During our relationship, I can remember the clothes that he had. Amongst them was lightweight denim shirt coloured light blue with long sleeves, a collar and 2 breast pockets. It was the only tidy shirt I saw him wear." She said, "I can identify him in this photograph wearing that shirt," which is the one we see here. "He is wearing it over a white t-shirt. He is also holding a wine glass and a rum bottle. The denim shirt had 2 buttons on the cuff and had a button-down collar. He used to wear this shirt a lot when we went out. It was my favourite shirt. And all the times I saw him later in 98, I never saw him wearing that shirt. I actually asked him where the shirt was, and he always said, 'It's on the boat.' It was never found, the shirt. He never produced his clothes that he was wearing in the picture that night." His girlfriend goes on to tell the court, When I saw him on the 28th of November 97, he had a new pair of ankle-length brown leather lace-up boots. He bought these sometime between 4th of November 97 and 27 November 97. I last saw him with them on the 28th of November 97 when he left Whangarei with his boat. Once again, I did not see those boots again. I particularly liked them as they were dark tan colour with some brown fabric quilting around the ankle and a black rubber sole. They weren't scruffy. I also asked him where the boots were and he told me that they were on his boat. Again, they were never produced by Watson. Detective Sergeant Landreth testified, and in relation to the clothing specific items of clothing, a blue denim shirt, a white t-shirt, dark jeans and brown dress boots, did you find any of those items when you searched the stern area of the boat? The answer was no. Did you find them anywhere else on the boat? Again, the answer is no. So they weren't on the boat, the clothes and the shoes, like he said to his girlfriend. They were never seen again. So Ian asks, why is lying relevant? Because it goes to dishonesty and credibility. When the prime suspect in a murder investigation embarks on massive deception, like it appears that Scott Watson was doing, it can be fatal at trial if they are caught in that lie, and that's why most defendants don't testify. Watson lied about his missing clothes, he lied about his timings, he lied about his movements for 36 hours, he lied about who he was with. His alibi witnesses have been proven to have lied. So Ian says, doesn't this scream red flag? Does it scream red flag to you guys? What do you think so far? We haven't got long to go. So pulling it all together, his description matches the mystery man who said he was a boat builder who'd sailed his own craft to Furneaux alone. Both men had crewed on fishing boats. Both arrived at the jetty at the same time. Only one taxi driver, Guy Wallace, could have taken them. Guy Wallace did positively ID Watson before suffering memory burnout. 2 of 3 water taxi witnesses confirmed they'd never seen a ketch, and Guy Wallace was never certain either. 2 of the 3 witnesses never saw portholes, and Wallace admitted a police question on 2nd of January may have planted a false ketch memory in his head. Wallace was prone to making stuff up. All 3 water taxi witnesses told police Ben and Olivia had absolutely no difficulty stepping onto the yacht in the pitch dark, which they could not have done if they had had to climb 6 feet up on a big ketch. It was a little boat, like Blade, tied up to other yachts, like Blade, and it was shaped like a banana, just like Blade. So Ian goes on to say the probability of the mystery man sharing everything in common with Watson, but being someone else, is billions to 1 against. That's far exceeding the 95% threshold for beyond reasonable doubt. And then when you chuck in his lying and suspicious behaviour, you may as well call it 100%. Just before we finish up on Ian's video or webinar, these are the 2 books that he has released. And look, I couldn't have done this video without him. So definitely look at these books if you're interested in more. So what do you guys think? I am much more into believing the police statements on the police file that he's shown us. I think memories are more reliable after the event, and yeah, the mystery ketch. He's really shown me that the witnesses did not describe those guys getting onto a huge ketch. It had to be a tiny little boat that they stepped onto with no problems, drunk in the middle of the night. There was no second mast. The second mast was probably on a boat rafted up to Blade, because I think it was Blade now that I've looked at it, the information. I think the mystery ketch that everybody talked about that night, or the few days, was Alliance. It did have portholes, it did have 2 masts, and it had all the rope. The hair, it's shown that he does sometimes have a fringe looking hair, and it sometimes it does go down to his collar and can look wavy. He's described as having sleepy looking eyes. In the sketch, it had sleepy looking eyes. It did look like him. I think whether he's guilty or not, he's served his time, and I know he'll be coming up for parole again soon, so it will be interesting to see what happens. A lot of people think it doesn't matter, he served his time, but from the polls that I've done, it feels like 75% before these videos anyway of Kiwis believed he was not guilty, and I just always wonder what they based it on. Yeah, obviously didn't base it on facts, because all these people, millions of Kiwis, weren't there. They've just built on rumours and hearsay and Chinese whispers, and the information has just got way beyond what really happened, the facts, and it's just growing huge. And now people are just so entrenched in what they heard from somebody else, and then they've thrown a bit in themselves and a bit from this person, have made up their mind. Who bloody knows where they get that from? The last thing I'm going to say is I'm going to put a poll up on my Facebook page, New Zealand Mysteries, and also on YouTube. I'd like to know whether you still think that he is guilty. That big percentage of you, I really would like to know. nzmissing@gmail.com to contact me. Please come and see us on our Facebook page or podcast. We are in those places if you just take a look. buymeacoffee.com/NZ Mysteries. If you can afford to make a $3 donation, it just goes back into the maintenance of the show. Take care, be safe out there, be kind, and I will see you next time. Bye guys.